Select lists are another common feature for selecting from a list of options. Let's make a working copy of select.html and we'll see how this works. I'll rename this to select-working.html and open it up in my text editor. So you notice up here at the top, we're using the same forms.css and forms.js that we've been using throughout this chapter. And here we have our actual form, and you'll notice that the select element is actually implemented with a select tag. It doesn't overload the input tag like so many of the other elements in HTML forms do. The select tag is a container and it contains option tags. And these option tags are also containers. You notice they have end tags and they have content, and that content is the text label for the drop-down list. Let's take a look at the drop-down list. We're going to open this in a browser. And in this case, I'm going to use the Firefox browser. This particular element works in all the different browsers. And here's this text says select a cat. And you'll notice that the first element in my list says select a cat. And it has the selected attribute, which means that it will always be selected upon startup. And it also says disabled, which means that you cannot actually select it. So you'll notice that as I move my cursor here, I can't get back to select a cat. I have to select one of the other cats. And that's because it says disabled. And you'll notice that each of these cats, these are all fictional cats from literature and other sources. And you'll notice that they have the name of the cat inside the content of the option, and then a short name as the value. And so when I select one of these and I hit the big red button, you'll notice that the value comes up just saying hat. So the cat in the hat, his value is just hat. Now, if I delete the cat in the hat text from the option, then when I reload this, you'll notice that it comes up with an empty spot there. In older browsers, it would actually use the short name in the selection list. That's not always the case though, so you want to make sure that you always have some content here for your selection list. And there it's back and it says the cat in the hat. There are two distinct ways that this list can be formatted. There's the drop-down list like this that we're all familiar with. And if I put in a size here, if I say size equals 5 and save this and reload it in the browser, now it actually gets formatted as a scrolling list instead of a drop-down list. And I can still select anything I want to from the list. There's also a multiple attribute, which will allow me to select multiple items from the list. I put in that multiple attribute and I go ahead and reload this. Now I can, on my Mac, I'm holding down the command key. On a PC or another platform, you usually hold down the control key and you can select multiple items. And when I press the big red button here, you see I get select Cheshire, Bigglesworth, cat. It's actually sending to the JavaScript an array with multiple values. And with CGI, it'll send complete separate elements with a name-value pair with the same name. One other interesting feature of the multiple is I can take out this size now, and it will always default to this scrolling list, and it'll default to a size of 4. And so because I have multiple selected, multiple just doesn't work very well with the drop-down interface. And when you're using the scrolling list, you probably most of the time are not going to want this disabled selected item at the top. So I'll go ahead and delete that for now, and we can reload this, and we see that that's gone. So one more feature that you need to know about here, when your lists get very long, sometimes you're going to want to segment them. And so there's an opt group element, which is useful for that. And it looks like this. I say opt group label equals literature, because these are cats from literature, this first group. And then down at the end of that section, I close the opt group. And now all of these options inside of that opt group container are in a section. And so I might want to have another section for the cats from film, and another one for the cats from television, and another one for cats from comics. I like to do a little bit of formatting. Even when I'm doing something that I think is going to be temporary, I've gotten to the place where I just format it anyway, because now and then these things end up being permanent, and I come back and it's formatted all wacky, and it's just not that hard to do. So I'll go ahead and I'll save this, and I'll bring this up in the browser, and you notice that our cats are now in groups: literature, film, television, comics. If the size were bigger, say size equals 6, save that and reload, and now that's starting to look really good. It also looks good in the drop-down version. Save that and reload. and we can see that we have all of our cats segmented in our opt groups. So the select list is another feature that's been around since the beginning of the HTML forms interface. This feature is supported by all browsers that support forms.